Either, my then best friend wants to marry me for papers. She even agreed to it with my girlfriend in exchange for money. So this occurred when I was 21. However, the backstory dates all the way back to high school. I met this girl. Let us call her Sarah. In high school. We weren't best friends back then, but we had a strong friendship. We took a few classes together and hung out in the same friend group. However, it wasn't until after graduation that we truly became close. After high school, you tend to lose touch with some people, but a few stick around. Sarah was one of those who hung around. After graduation, we began to talk more. We have these long phone calls, sometimes late at night, talking about everything, including life, relationships, and random topics. We even communicated frequently via FaceTime, and she quickly became one of my closest friends. We were fairly open with each other, which made things feel easier. However, there is a slight twist. When I was 19, I developed some feelings. Not surprising, right? We had grown close, and I'd always thought she was cool, funny, and easy to talk to. I figured, why not take my shot? So I told her directly that I liked her. I wasn't expecting much, but I figured it was worth being honest about my feelings. She did not feel the same way. She let me down gently, as if it weren't a harsh rejection, but it was clear she didn't see me that way. She said she valued our friendship and did not want to jeopardize it. I respected that, and to be honest, it didn't mess me up too badly. Sure, I was disappointed, but not devastated. After all, rejection occurs, right? I've just moved on. Started dating other girls and eventually developed a serious relationship. There were no hard feelings between Sarah and me. In fact, after that little confession, our friendship remained pretty much unchanged. We kept talking as if nothing had happened, and we remained best friends for the next few years. It was cool. Fast forward 2 years. Sarah had already moved to another state. We tried to stay in touch as much as we could, but life got busy. She was dealing with her own issues, as was I. The calls and texts became less frequent, but there was no drama involved. I didn't feel like we were drifting apart in a negative way. It was more like we were caught up in our own lives. She called me unexpectedly one day. It was kind of unexpected because, as I previously stated, we hadn't spoken in a while. I expected a routine catch-up call. "Hello, how have you been?" That kind of thing. But she had something else in mind. Sarah asked if I would marry her for papers when she said that. I just sat there for a second, trying to process it. It seemed completely unexpected. I wasn't sure what to say at first. She was essentially asking me to assist her with her immigration status. She explained that it wasn't as simple as signing some papers and calling it a day or not. She wanted us to go all out. She wanted to marry, make it seem like we were madly in love, create a social media post about it, maybe even have a full-fledged wedding. It wasn't as if she was asking me to help her quietly handle the paperwork and keep it low-key. She wanted us to put on a full show. So here's the thing. At the time, I was involved in a serious relationship with someone else. Sarah didn't know because we hadn't talked much. But I had a girlfriend, and things were going very well. This was my first thought. How do I explain this to my girlfriend? But honestly, even if I wasn't in a relationship, I wouldn't have wanted to do it. It wasn't just about having a phony marriage on paper. She asked for a full performance, and I could already see a million things that could go wrong. I didn't have to think about it for long before telling her no and okay. I did not tell her the whole truth about why. I told her that my parents were extremely conservative and would never allow me to marry for any reason other than love, which was true. They're old school like that. But the real reason I didn't want to do it was that I couldn't imagine myself faking a whole relationship, going through the motions, and dealing with the social consequences. My parents played a role, but I also didn't want to live a lie. For the next, how many years? The thought of faking a wedding, putting up a front for everyone else, and pretending we were in love when we weren't? That was not something I could do. Not to mention the legal aspect of things. What if something goes wrong? What if immigration discovered we were faking? It all seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. I told her no. She brushed it off at first, as if it were no big deal, but I could tell she was disappointed. I believe she was hurt too, but she did not push me. She simply said something like, "I understand," and we moved on. But the conversation felt very different after that, following that call. things between us have changed. It was as if that one question changed everything. She messaged me a few times, saying she was in town and wanted to meet up, but I always found a reason to avoid it. I told myself that I was too busy. But deep down, I believe I was simply avoiding the awkwardness. It was difficult to shake the feeling that our relationship had changed. And honestly, I had grown a lot in those few years. I wasn't the same guy who had feelings for her when I was 19, and I felt like we'd developed our friendship in different ways. I do not regret saying no. I believe if I had agreed, it would have been a huge headache for both of us, and I don't think either of us really considered all of the consequences. It was not a simple favor. Getting married for papers is a big deal, with legal and emotional consequences that neither of us could have predicted. Also, I was in a relationship. What would I have told my girlfriend? It simply wasn't realistic. So, a few months after Sarah first asked me to marry her for papers, we hadn't spoken much since. I honestly assumed that was the end of it. Our friendship had already cooled, and after that whole situation, I assumed we were both simply moving on. I was in a stable relationship with my girlfriend at the time, and everything was going well. Life felt fairly normal again. That's why I was surprised when Sarah suddenly contacted me again. It was a random day, and she texted me asking if we could talk. I didn't think much about it at first. Maybe she simply wanted to catch up, so I said yes, and we ended up on the phone that same night. The call began with normal small talk about how each other's lives were going. She told me about her job and how she was adjusting to her new state. But then, just as the conversation took a turn, Sarah brought up marriage again. She told me she'd been thinking about it a lot since our last conversation. She stated that her situation had not improved, and that getting married for papers remained her best option. But this time, she approached it from a different angle. She did not simply ask me to do it as a favor. She said she missed me. She stated that since we stopped talking, she has realized how much she valued our friendship and cared about me. She even suggested that we could have something more. I was truly stunned. Here was someone who had rejected me when I confessed my feelings to her, now turning around and suggesting that we could be in a relationship. And all of this was happening in the context of her asking me to marry her for papers. It felt strange, as if she was only considering a relationship because she was desperate to marry. And that did not sit well with me. But I did not say that. I tried to remain calm and hear her out. Sarah kept pushing. She explained that she had been thinking about how things might have been different if we had dated. I told her I liked her when I was 19. She began discussing how she may not have given us a fair chance back then, and how she wanted to see if we could be more than friends now. But here's the thing. I knew it wasn't about us suddenly becoming a couple. It was still about the paperwork. She was combining her emotions with the situation because, at the end of the day, she needed to remain in the country. It felt like she was convincing herself that we could be together so she could ask me to marry her again. And maybe she missed me. But I couldn't help but think that this was more about her situation than any genuine feelings she had for me. I told her that while I appreciated what she was saying, I couldn't marry her. I tried to let her down gently again, explaining that we had grown apart and were now in different places in our lives, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. She persisted, saying that we could figure it out, and that if we spent more time together, we'd realize we still had that connection. She even suggested we take things slowly and see if a relationship would work. At this point, I needed to be honest. I told her that I'm in a relationship, I can't do it, and that's when things became really awkward. Sarah paused for a moment, and I knew she wasn't expecting me to say that. She seemed completely taken aback. After a long silence, she said, "You are in a relationship." I told her that I'd been seeing someone for a while and it was serious. I wasn't going to throw away all of that just to get into a fake marriage, especially not when I truly cared about my girlfriend. Sarah hit me with something unexpected. She stated, "I thought you would have waited for me. I assumed you'd still be there, just in case I changed my mind about us. I had no idea how to respond to that." She sounded genuinely hurt, as if she expected me to sit around waiting for her to decide to be with me. It was wild. She had rejected me years before, and now she was acting as if I was supposed to just hang on until she decided I was worth giving another chance. I tried to explain to her that I had moved on and that life had moved on. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to be ready for a relationship, especially since she had previously stated that she didn't feel the same way. But she did not want to hear it. She kept saying that she had always assumed we'd end up together, and that perhaps she just needed more time. But it was too late. I was already with someone else. At this point, the conversation was becoming extremely uncomfortable. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but I couldn't just sit there and do what she said. Made sense. It was unfair to both me and my girlfriend. So I stood firm and told her again that I couldn't marry her and that I was content with my relationship. Sarah did not take it well. She became frustrated, claiming that I was making a mistake. She said we could have had something real if I had just given it a chance, but something didn't feel right about it. She seemed more upset about me not being available to marry her than anything else. I eventually had to end the call. I apologized for how things had turned out, but I couldn't help her. And I wasn't going to give up a meaningful relationship for something unreal. A few weeks passed after the awkward phone call with Sarah. Things between me and my girlfriend were pretty normal. We were going strong, hanging out as usual, and I honestly thought the whole Sarah situation was behind me. She hadn't contacted me since, and I had no plans to contact her either. But then one night, my girlfriend approached me out of nowhere and asked, "So, how's Sarah doing?" I froze for a second, completely taken off guard. My mind began racing. Why would she ask about Sarah? I had not mentioned Sarah to her since that strange phone call. I assumed she had heard me mention the name in passing, but I couldn't understand why she brought it up so casually. I was trying to remain calm, but I was actually panicking a little. "So, how do you know who Sarah is?" I inquired, attempting to keep my voice steady. My girlfriend simply smiled at me as if it were the most normal thing in the world. We have been talking. She reached out to me. My heart sank. I had no idea how to process that. Sarah reached out to my girlfriend. Why? How? I hadn't even told Sarah my girlfriend's name, let alone anything more intimate. Even if she had managed to figure it out, why would she want to contact her? My girlfriend must have noticed my confusion because she laughed and said, "Yes, she messaged me on Instagram. She mentioned that she wanted to get to know me. We met for coffee the other day." I looked at her in disbelief. This was wild. The last thing I expected was Sarah chatting with my girlfriend behind my back, and now they were meeting for coffee. I was completely floored. "Wait, what?" I replied, blinking at her. "You two met, and you didn't tell me?" She shrugged as if it was no big deal. I didn't believe it was that important. Sarah explained that she just wanted to get to know me. She suggested we talk because you two were such close friends. At this point, my thoughts were racing. This did not sit well with me at all. Sarah had never expressed any interest in getting to know my girlfriend before. When I mentioned being in a relationship during our last call, she acted as if she had no idea. Why would she want to meet my girlfriend right now? But before I could gather my thoughts, my girlfriend dropped another bombshell. "So, why haven't you married her?" she inquired, looking at me intently. I blinked at her again. What? Why was she asking me this? I thought we were all on the same page about how ridiculous Sarah's situation was. I'd already told her I was in a relationship and that marrying Sarah was not an option. "What do you mean? Why haven't I married her?" I asked. "I am completely baffled. I love you. I am with you. I am not going to marry anyone else." However, instead of smiling or saying something reassuring, my girlfriend simply looked at me with this strange expression. She didn't seem to mind that I was marrying someone else. She was genuinely interested in why I hadn't gone through with it. "Sarah told me she offered you money," and she crossed her arms. My heart has stopped. "What? Wait, what?" "She offered me money," I stammered. My girlfriend nodded. "Yes," she told me. "She offered you $1,000 to marry her and you declined." I was speechless. Sarah never mentioned money when she asked me to marry her. It was all about the papers and a vague image of us. Maybe you're in a relationship. There was never any talk about money. "She didn't offer me money," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not sure where you got that from, but she never mentioned anything about paying me." My girlfriend frowned, confused. "Well, she offered me $1,000 if I could persuade you to marry her." I had literally no words. I just stared at her, stunned. Sarah offered my girlfriend money to persuade me to marry her. This was getting crazy by the second. Wait, what? I was finally able to say she offered you $1,000. My girlfriend nodded again. Totally serious. Yeah. She said if you married her, she would give me a portion of the money. This is not a bad deal. Honestly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This situation was spiraling out of control in ways I hadn't expected. Sarah had not only approached my girlfriend without my knowledge, but she was now bribing her to agree to the marriage. What was even more shocking was that my girlfriend was considering the idea as if it were a business transaction. I cannot believe this, I said while rubbing my temples. Are you seriously considering this? My girlfriend shrugged again, almost casually. Think about it. She only wants papers. It's not like it's a legitimate marriage. We could make some easy money, but it wouldn't change anything between us. I was floored. I thought I knew my girlfriend, but this was a completely new side of her that I wasn't expecting. The idea of marrying someone else, even just for papers, seemed wrong to me on so many levels. It wasn't just about the money or the law. It was about the principle. I was not going to disrespect my relationship by marrying someone else, even if it was only for show. I am not doing this, I stated firmly, shaking my head. I don't care how much Sarah offers. I am not marrying her. I am with you. That is the only relationship I care about. But my girlfriend did not seem convinced. It's only for papers, though. She said it again, as if she were trying to downplay the entire situation. It's not like you'd really be with her. We simply collect the money and move on. I couldn't believe what I heard. I felt like I was in an alternate reality where everyone else had lost their minds. How could she not realize how wrong this was? I'm not marrying Sarah, I said it again, more forcefully. I don't care what she's offering. I am not doing it. This is the end of the story. For the first time, my girlfriend appeared genuinely disappointed. She didn't argue, but I could tell she was dissatisfied with my decision. She simply nodded slowly and said, "Okay, if that is what you want." The conversation had me completely rattled. I couldn't believe Sarah would go so far to get you what you wanted. I couldn't believe my girlfriend was thinking about going along with it. It made me question a lot of things about Sarah, my relationship, and what I truly valued in this situation. I was still reeling from the strange conversation with my girlfriend about Sarah's insane marriage proposal. I assumed that once I put my foot down and told her no, that was the end of it. Who in their right mind would keep pushing the idea of me marrying someone else while we were together? It felt like something you'd hear about in a strange movie plot rather than real life. But I was mistaken. Totally wrong. It was a Friday evening after a long day at work, and I was just hoping for a quiet night. I locked the front door and entered the apartment. Expecting to find my girlfriend lounging on the couch or perhaps cooking something, what I saw stopped me in my tracks. My girlfriend and Sarah sitting at the kitchen table in my apartment, chatting and laughing like best friends. It was surreal. I stood in the doorway for a moment, frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. Sarah hadn't been to my house in years, and the last time we talked, it was obvious that things had gotten awkward. And now she was sitting with my girlfriend, as if everything was perfectly normal. "Hey, babe," my girlfriend said brightly, as she noticed me standing there. "Look who has come over." Sarah wanted to talk. I felt my stomach drop. Something was clearly off. Sarah had come over without warning, and my girlfriend seemed perfectly fine with it, which didn't sit well with me. "Hello, Sarah." I spoke slowly and forced a smile. "What's happening?" Sarah smiled sweetly at me, as if she hadn't just asked me to marry her for papers a few weeks prior. "Hello, long time no see. I just caught up with your girlfriend." I was still unable to make sense of what was happening. I removed my jacket and tried to appear normal, but my mind was racing. The entire scene felt strange, as if there was an undercurrent of something I wasn't aware of, and I was about to discover just how crazy things were about to get. "So," my girlfriend said, looking at me as if we were having the most casual conversation ever. We were talking and came up with an idea. I raised an eyebrow, a sense of dread creeping over me. "Is there an idea?" Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, we were thinking, Why not just go ahead with it? You could marry me and I could live here with you. It will be like a small arrangement. I miss you, and this will just make things easier. I blinked. I blinked again. Did I hear that correctly? My mind was whirling. They were serious. They were actually suggesting that I marry Sarah for the paperwork and have her move in with us, as if this were a normal, everyday conversation. And the way they talked about it with these casual, almost cheerful smiles made me feel like I'd stepped into an alternate reality. Hold up, I said, my voice shaky. Do you want me to marry you, Sarah, and live with my girlfriend? My girlfriend nodded as if this were all perfectly reasonable. Yeah, Sarah misses you, and you won't really be with her. It's only for the papers. Furthermore, she would pass $1,000. I couldn't believe what I heard. It wasn't just about the papers anymore. This was turning into a twisted version of polyamory, which I had never agreed to. And the fact that my girlfriend was sitting there supporting Sarah's plan made it even more surreal. Please wait, I said, raising my hands. Are you really okay with this? Do you want me to marry Sarah and have her live with us? How does that make sense? Sarah leaned forwards. Her voice was soft and persuasive. It's not a real marriage, you understand. It's only on paper. We wouldn't need to tell anyone. And I could help with the rent or whatever. It would be similar to having a roommate, but with some additional benefits. I felt as if the room was spinning. Was this really happening? Was my girlfriend okay with this idea? Was Sarah really suggesting that we all live together like in a weird sitcom? I looked at my girlfriend, hoping for a signal that this was all a joke, but she was completely on board with the idea. This makes sense, babe. It's only for a short while. Sarah would also help pay the rent. Furthermore, we'd receive the $1,000. It's a win-win. I stared at her, completely speechless. My own girlfriend was encouraging me to marry someone else for money and have that person move into our house. She was not even joking. This is insane. You are both insane. There is no way I am going through with this. Do you hear yourselves? Sarah's smile faltered, and she exchanged glances with my girlfriend. We simply thought it would be easier this way, she explained quietly. I miss you, and I wondered if we could even see where things go. That was it. That was when it struck me like a ton of bricks. Sarah was no longer just asking for papers. She was attempting to reintegrate herself into my life, my relationship. And my girlfriend was allowing her. I'm with her. I spoke firmly, pointing at my girlfriend. I am not going to marry you, Sarah. I'm not concerned with the money, the papers, or whatever you think this is. I am not doing it. Instead of backing off, Sarah leaned in even more, her tone becoming desperate. But you could stay with her, she insisted. This does not alter anything. I miss you. And I figured if we spent more time together, you'd notice that we still have something. I couldn't believe what was happening. My girlfriend was sitting right there, listening to everything, and she wasn't stopping. I turned to her, my voice shaking in disbelief. Are you really okay with this? Are you really going to sit there and let her talk like this? I am with you. I love you. Why would you even consider it? Instead of looking shocked or upset, my girlfriend shrugged as if it was no big deal. It's only for papers, she explained again. That explains everything. Plus, you wouldn't be cheating or anything. It's only a marriage on paper. I couldn't believe what I heard. This was far beyond what I imagined was possible in a relationship. I stood there, feeling as if the ground had been ripped out from beneath me. No, I replied, shaking my head. I am not doing this. I'm not marrying Sarah. I'm not letting her live here. I don't care about the money. This is insane, and I am not going to let it ruin everything we have. Sarah appeared devastated, but my girlfriend remained unfazed. She sighed, stood up, and approached me. I get it, baby. I just assumed it was an option. But if you're really against it, that's okay. I didn't know what to think anymore. About Sarah, my girlfriend, and everything. They had planned the entire thing together. And the fact that they were pushing this idea as if it were normal shook me to the core. I could not shake the feeling that something had changed in my relationship. Trust had been broken, and I wasn't sure I could ever look at either of them the same way again. Am I really because I refused to marry my friend due to the documents, despite my girlfriend's wishes?